Hello my friends, welcome. In the previous video, I introduced you to basic HTML and we were able to build and deploy our very simple website, and in the process we learned about some basic HTML elements such as the heading element, the paragraph element, the unordered list element. We also learned about the ordered list element and so on, and by the end of it we were able to deploy our very simple website. So what you see here is the live version of what we deployed. So now we want to take it a notch higher by learning advanced HTML that will enable us move from building something that is very basic as this to something that is professional and advanced like this. So actually this is the website we're going to build, but before we get there we need to learn what it takes to build such a website, and we're going to learn advanced HTML, and we'll be able to build this beautiful and amazing website. Yeah, so to get started, I want to navigate to the place where we'll set up our project, so you can do the same. So in my case, I want to set up my project here, so I can create an empty folder. So with my empty folder created, I want to add some starter files and assets. So I can just paste here. So I'll provide these assets to you. These are just images and media files and so on. So now let's open our project in a code editor. So there are several options. You can drag and drop in an open code editor, or you can start from the VS Code and browse through the place where you have your folder. Or in my case, I'm going to right click, show more options, and open with code editor. So once that is done, you can see our project here. And again, these are just starter files. So you see we have images, we have some media files, and then we have some text here. This contains all the content of the website we are going to build. Yeah, so now we can just get started. So we can start by creating our index file. This will serve as the entry file to our project. Okay, so once we have that, you can type exclamation mark, enter. This creates a boilerplate template of our HTML file. And then when you save, you see your code is automatically formatted. This is due to an extension we have here that's called Prettier. So when you choose extensions and Prettier, make sure you have this extension installed. It's called Prettier Code Formatter. And so once you have it, also you can check some settings here to make sure that everything is working okay. So you can type, you can go to settings, type format, and then first make sure that you have Prettier as the default code formatter, and then also you can choose format on save. This ensures that whenever you save your document, your code is formatted. Yeah, and beside that, there are two more settings I would like to highlight. If you see HTML, just scroll down until you see HTML. You can open that, or perhaps you can even type here. But once you do that, there is this option, max preserve new line. So you can ensure that this is set to 1. And then also preserve new lines, make sure that this is checked. So let me show you what this does. This ensures that when, for example, let's say I have a title here, hello, and then I have a paragraph, just some dummy text. If I add some spaces here and click save, my code will be formatted, but one line will be preserved. So this can also be helpful if I want my code to be well organized so that it's easily readable. So however much space I add here, if I click save, at least I have one line reserved. Yeah, so with that, now we can focus on our head element. And on the head element, we have a bunch of meta tags or meta elements. So the first one we have is character set. This ensures that our browser uses UTF-8 character set. This contains all the characters in the world. Yeah, so this is the standard that we use for HTML. So beside that, we have the viewport meta tag. This ensures that our page is correctly rendered across different screen sizes. So we are saying content width is equals to device width, and then the initial scale is 1. Yeah, so without this, you cannot have a responsive website. So beside that, we have the title element that contains the title of our web page. So first of all, if I was to go live here, let me just click live. You see, this is the title of our document. It just says document. So we need to change it to reflect the title of our page. So when we go to our files, we have the text that contain all the content of our website. So you can just copy the title of our website here and paste it here. Okay, so now if we go to our browser, you see we have updated title. So beside the title, there is another meta tag I want to highlight. So if you type meta, you see some options. So let's choose the description option. So we have description, and then we can add the content here. So this should give more description about the page. So I can just paste this. So the title together with meta description helps with search engine optimization, ensuring that our page is properly optimized for search engines, so that if someone searches Delicious Bites restaurant, they're able to see our restaurant as one of the options. And beside that, I also want to add another element, that is the style. So again, styles are not the main focus of this video. We'll be covering styles in a later video, but for now we're just going to have some very basic styles just to make sure that our page is properly rendered. So one of the styles I want to add is body. So again, you don't have to worry about styles. You will learn more about this in the next videos. So the style I've added is just adding some space around our page to ensure that our elements are not sticking to the edge of the browser. That way we see them better. So to avoid back and forth, I'm going to resize my code editor so that we can be able to see the browser and the code editor at the same time and see our changes in real time. Okay, so we can clear up everything in the body and start from a clean slate. So first of all, in HTML, there is something we call comments. These are used to just leave comments in your code, or even you can even use it to comment out your code. If there is a section of your code you don't want to be visible, you can just comment it out. So to do that, you just click Control/. You see it toggles between on and off. Yeah, so just Control/, Control/. And so let's say we have a code here, for example, H1. If I save, you see the code in the browser. But if I don't want the code to be visible, I can just type Control/, I comment it out. And so we are going to use comments a lot, so that's why I introduced them to you here. So first, we want to learn about using semantic HTML. So what is semantic HTML? Earlier, we learned about some HTML elements such as H1 or heading 1. So heading 1 means it's a heading. So whenever I use this tag, it represents a heading. So this is semantic HTML. It has semantic meaning. Beside that, if you use something like P, for example, this represents a paragraph. Okay. So beside these elements, we have some elements such as div. Div is basically a container that can be used to wrap around some content. So let's say we have something here. Let's say I am a div. So an element like div has got no semantic meaning. It's just a container that holds other elements. So semantic HTML means using HTML elements that have some meaning, even to the browser. We have another one that's called span. So span works similarly to div, by wrapping around content, but there is some difference. To show you that, I need to go to Inspect tool here in my browser, and then I can put it at the bottom here by clicking the three dots, and then ensure I select my Elements tab, and then come down to my div here. If I hover on it, you see it's taking as much space as is available across the page from left to right. But when I hover on the span, it's only taking the space available to fit the content. Yeah, so the div is a block element, while the span is an inline element, but they are both used to wrap around content. Yeah, so for you to be a professional developer, you need to know some of these semantic elements and use them correctly. So the first semantic element I want us to look at is the header element. Notice it's the header, not the head. So this is used to wrap around the head content of a document. So for example, we can use it to wrap around our logo, our header navigation, and such like things. So let's just start off by adding our logo here. So you can just type div. I want to wrap my logo with a div. And then here in the files I provided, we have a logo here. So this logo is sitting side by side to our index file. Yeah, so it's at the root of our project. So all we need to do is to type an image. And then here, if you type logo, you see it's suggested here. And then beside that, we have an alt attribute. An alt attribute describes the image. And this is very, very useful because if an image doesn't load for whatever reason, at least we have the text for the image. So beside that, an alt text is also used by screen readers, mostly used by people who are visually impaired. So it's very important to add it here. So in my case, I'm going to add this as a description. And then when I save by typing Ctrl S, you see my logo here. It's very, very huge. So to make sure that it doesn't break our page, we can add another attribute here, the style attribute, and just give it a height of 100 pixels. Important, make sure there is no space between 100 and px. Okay, so now we can see at least our logo is much smaller. In fact, we can make it smaller. Let's say 8. Yeah, that's much better. Yeah, so beside that, following the example we have here, you see we have our logo, we have our menus here, and so on. So let's add a UL list. And then inside here, we have a list element. And then inside the list element, we can add another element here. That is the anchor tag. Let's put a hash as a placeholder. And then the first one is about us. So this ensures that our link is clickable. Yeah, so actually you can have a look of how our page is coming along. Yeah, so we have the first link, and then all we need to do is, so next we have menu. And then to duplicate, you can just click Shift Alt downward arrow. So beside this, we also want to add these two links, that is contact us and order. So to help us with our styling, I'm going to add it as a separate UL element. So you can have contact us. And then duplicate order. Yeah, so we need to wrap this inside an anchor tag. So you can just type A, enter. So make sure the content is inside the anchor tag. Same to this. Okay, so we can add a hashtag as a placeholder for now. Okay, so now when we have a look at our page, you see we have our links here. And so our main focus was on the header element that's wrapping our navigation together with the logo. Next, I want us to talk about the main element. So the main elements wraps around the main content of the page. Yeah, so the main element can also contain other elements. So one of such elements is a section. So the section element is used to define different sections of the page. So for our website, we can have, for example, the first section as the hero. So let me add an ID attribute and just call it the hero. Yeah, again, I can add some comment here. Yeah, so this is the hero section. So this is where the content of the hero section will go. So based on our website here, you can see on the hero section, we have this video running. So actually this will be the focus of this section. We'll be learning on working with media files, such as videos and audio. Yeah, so to get started, we need to start with the video. So we're going to use a video element. In HTML, we have an element that can be used for videos. So that is the video element. So for the video element, the most important attribute is the source attribute that points to the source of the file. So in our project here, in the files I've provided, we have the media folder that contains the video we're going to use. And so that is the video. So how do we access the video from the media folder based on our current location? So first of all, you have to go to the media folder, and then inside the media folder, we have our video. So by doing that, when we now save, you'll see our video is rendered. But again, our video is too big. So we can add more attributes to configure that. So I can just say here, let's add a height attribute, and then we can give it 300 pixels. This will make our video visible. Yeah, so you can add some other attributes. And again, this video can be designed using CSS, but we'll learn CSS later. Yeah, so for now, let's add more attributes here. So we have another attribute that's called controls. This adds controls on the video. So when I save, you see you can play the video, you can even download the video. We have all manner of controls here on the video. And maybe I can highlight something. You can see this attribute is different from these other attributes where we have attribute name and attribute value. This one is just the attribute. So this is what we call a Boolean attribute. A Boolean attribute is something that is either yes or no. So the presence of it means that this functionality is activated. The absence of it means the functionality is not there. So for this case, it's enough to just have the name of the attribute. Okay. So beside that, we have another attribute that's called autoplay. Still, this is a Boolean value. So when you have the autoplay attribute, your video just starts to play every time the page is loaded. And beside that, we can also have another attribute called loop. This enables the video to play continuously as long as the page is loaded. And beside that, it's very, very important to make sure that whenever you have autoplay, you have another attribute that's called mute, or rather muted. This ensures that your video is muted unless the user clicks play. Yeah, when you just leave the video like that, it can be very annoying where a video just starts to play, making a lot of noise when the user is not ready. Yeah, so this is just for good user experience. Yeah, so to learn more attributes about this element, actually when you hover on it, if you're using VS Code Editor, it shows you some reference documentation. And in this case, you can use Mozilla Developer Network reference to just read more about this element. And so you can just open it. So here they talk more about the element with some example there. And then we have attributes. We have attributes like autoplay, controls, and you can read more about some other attributes that are rarely used. But you can see the ones we've used like loop and muted and so on. Yeah, so you can have this documentation handy, Mozilla Developer Network, just to reference everything we are learning here. Yeah, so beside that, I can briefly talk about the audio files. So how do you add an audio file in a HTML document? Just type audio. Similarly to video, it requires a link to where you have your file. Yeah, so in my case, I have the audio file inside the media folder. So we have this, the MP3 file. Yeah, so you can toggle this on and off by just clicking Control B. Yeah, so here it's inside media, and then I have my audio. So when I save, it doesn't display yet. So we need to add some attributes here. One of them is controls. This adds controls on the audio player. Yeah, so now you can play the audio, you can download, you can do all manner of things. Yeah, so it's that easy adding an audio file to your HTML document. So I'm just going to comment out this line just to have it here as your reference. Okay, so beside the video, I want to add some content below the video. First of all is the main title of our website. So this should be in H1 because it's the most important title in our website. So I can just paste the description here about our restaurant, delicious bites, love at first bite. I like that. Yeah, so we can add a description here, paragraph. Let me add another paragraph. Okay, so now I want to add an order button below our paragraph. So I can use another HTML element called button element and then just say order. Yeah, so again, this button will be styled using CSS. So to have our content organized, I want to wrap all this within a div, that is a div wrapper. So I can just type div and then paste all my content here. Yeah, so that's what we have on the hero section. And by the way, you can even toggle this to collapse it. So we want to move on to the next section. So the main section is the menu section. So I want to show you some trick. You can just write the name section and then hash and then menu. When you click enter, it will input an ID for you. Yeah, so let's add a comment. So in this section, we'll be focusing on two main things. First, focusing on nested UL content. And then secondly, we'll be focusing on HTML table. Yeah, so by doing that, I will be able to come up with something like this. So these are basically LI elements that are clustered together. And then below that, we have our HTML table. Working with UL nested content. And we'll also be working with the HTML tables. Okay, so let's get started. We can have a look at how our list item looks. So on the left, we have an image, and then on the right, we have the title, the price, and description. So we can represent that easily using UL. So just type UL, and then inside it, we have a list item. And then inside the list item, on the left, we have an image. So we can have an image inside a wrapper. So just say div. And then inside div, we have an image element, that is img. And then for the source, inside my images here, images, we have all these images. Yeah, so again, to close this, you can just click Control B. You toggle between closing and opening. Inside my images, I have lobster. Yeah, so that is the image we have there. And then you can add the title. So let's just add the title in the alt. So that is the image. But beside the image, we have this other part that we can also have a wrapper. That's the div. And then beside the div, we have the top section that contains the title and the price. And then we have the lower section that contains the description. So for the upper, we can also have another wrapper. We're having this wrapper so that it will be easier to style the element. Yeah, so up here we have, I think we can have a H3. And then we just put the title here. And then beside the title, we have price. So here we can use a span. and then we have our price, $29.99. And then beside the price, beside this, the top section, we have the lower section where we have the description. So we can still wrap that in a div, and then we add the content of the description. So we can add it in a paragraph so that it's more meaningful. Yeah, so now when we have a look at our page, we see our image is so big. So we need to resize it. So I can do that for now using an attribute, but again, styling is done using CSS. So we are doing this temporarily. So here we can say width 150. Okay, so now at least you can see our image is a bit smaller. So before we proceed, I think we can add a divider here just to separate the different sections. Yeah, so for us to do that, I'm going to add a horizontal rule. A horizontal rule is just a line that shows a clear break between one section and another. So you can just type HR for horizontal rule, and then we see we have our line here. And I also think it will be good if we have some spacing before and after the line. So for us to be able to do that, now allow me to just use a class here. I call it a divider. Again, don't worry about CSS. We'll focus on this later on. Yeah, so here I can add my class here. I call it divider. Okay, so with these styles, at least we've added some space here and space below. Yeah, so we can continue. So this is our first LI element. You can collapse this element just to see it better. Yeah, so in our project here, we have several items, but to save us some time, I'm just going to create one more, and then you can just repeat the process if you want to add all of them. Yeah, so I've duplicated, that is Shift, Alt, and then downward arrow. So now when we save, you see we have two items. So the next item is sushi. So let me just change that. And then we have a description here. Okay, and the price is $24.99. And the image is sushi. So let me untoggle this and change my image here. Okay, so now when you see, at least we have a different item here. So again, styling this, we need CSS. Yeah, so with that done, I think we can move on to working with our table. So we'll be creating something that looks like this. So let's work on it. So we are still on our menu section. So let me just toggle this so that we can be able to see what we are doing. So here we want to add the table. So adding a table in HTML is quite straightforward. So all we need is HTML table. So you can just type table, and then you define your table. And then beside that, we need to add a table row. So a table row is something like this, a row that moves from left to right, and so on. So we add table row here by just typing tr. Yeah, so the table row, the first row, of course, has several columns. So this row has, for example, 3 columns. You can see we have the dish name column, price column, and then we have description column. So columns for the head are defined by table head, just th. So th in this case will represent the first column. So in our case, we have 3 columns. We have one for dish name, we have another one for price, and then description. So here you can just type dish name. And then the second column is price. And then the third column is description. Okay, so if we have a look at our page here, you see already we have something coming up. We have dish name, we have price, we have description. So beside that, we can add another row. It's just saying table row. So this is the first row that is containing the heading, but the second row will contain the other data. So here we can just say TD or table data instead of TH. Yeah, so this will represent, for example, the first item we're having here is garlic bread. So this is in the first column, and then we can have TD again. We can actually duplicate so that it's easier for us. So the second column we have price, and then the third we have description. Okay, so when we look at our page here, you see now the first row is considered as the title because of the TH, and then the other row is just other content. So when working with HTML tables, when you use TH, your title are automatically bolded. Okay, so now it's a matter of repeating other rows. So you can just type TR, enter, and then you add the other row. So the second row is Caesar salad. So make sure here you have TD, and then we can duplicate 3 times for the 3 columns. So the first one is salad, Caesar salad. The second one is the price. The third one is description. Okay, so you create another table row. So actually the process is very repetitive. Just say TR, and then you have TD. You can duplicate first column, second column, third column, and then you can copy the third one. Yeah, so all the content for the table, we have it here. So you can just open text, and then you can scroll down. You can scroll down here until you see table. So this is the table data we've used here. So you see the first one is dish name, price, description. So here we have garlic bread as the first one, and then we have Caesar salad as the second one, and then all the content is like that. So we have price, description, and so on. So all this, for example, this line represents a table row, this another table row, this another table row, and so on. So all you need to do is just to copy and paste. Yeah, so I'm going to pause the video and do the same process for all the rows, table rows here, and then I'll come back. So just a tip before I do that, if you want to switch between these 2 tabs, you can just do Control Tab, Control Tab, Control Tab. You'll be switching between the 2 tabs, and it will be easier for you to move here and move back to the other file and so on. Yeah, so for this, I'm going to add the second item and all the other items. So I've added all this data. So you can pause the video and do the same. Anyway, this is what I have. I've gone ahead and added some title to make my code easily readable. So here we have appetizer for the how many rows, for the first 4 rows. And then we have main courses rows. And then we have dessert rows. And then we have drinks table rows. Yeah, so with that, we have something like this. So you can see this is our table, but it doesn't look anything like a table. So maybe we need to add a few styles just to make it clear that this is a table. So to do that, I'm going to add very basic styles. Again, don't worry about styles. For this one, you can just follow along. So here I want to target the table, table head, and table data. So table head and table data are what we call table cells. So by targeting that, I want to add some border so that it's clear that this is a table. Okay, so with that, at least you see we have some borders here. But again, we don't want to have double borders. So for us to deal with that, we need to target the table. And just say border collapse. Collapse. Okay, so this collapse the double lines into one. And then with that, I also want to add some spacing within the table cells. Yeah, so to do that, let me just copy these. To do that, I can add some padding here. Okay, so now at least our table is much better. So let's compare with this table. So you see on this table, everything is aligned to the left. So we can target our table here. So now we can see everything is aligned to the left. Yeah, but now how do we make our table look like this, where we categorize our data? Because right now, as is, this menu is quite confusing. So we need to break it down. Yeah, so for us to be able to do that, let's come to our table. So we start with the appetizer. So I want us to go to the first table row in this category, and then we add another table data here. We can call it appetizers. Okay, so after doing that, it looks like our page is broken, but don't worry, we'll fix it. So first things first, we want this appetizer, this cell, to span across 4 table rows down. So for us to achieve that, we need to use row span, and then we set it to 4. So that means this cell will span across 4 table rows. And then also, you see, it looks like our name is only targeting the category, and the price is targeting the wrong thing. So for us to be able to achieve what we intend to have, we can also span the name across the columns now. So for us to achieve that, we come to the title, and then instead of row, we say column span, that is col span, and then we span it across 2 columns. So with that, you can see now we have the name, then category name, and then we have the name of our items here. So everything appears to look correct, at least for the first part. So now we need to do the same for the other categories. So after appetizer, we go down to the main causes. So on the first row in our main causes, we add another table data, and then we can we call it main causes. Let me just copy. So now we can make sure that the main causes spans across 4 rows. So we can say row span, and then 4. Yeah, so we'll have something like this. And then we can do the same for dessert. Under the first table row, we add table data, and then dessert. And then make sure that we add row span 4, so that it spans across 4 rows. So we can do the same for the drinks. Add a table row, call it drinks, span across how many rows? 4. And say row span 4. Okay, so our table is taking shape, and actually it has. So let's add some space here. So I'm going to add that using a break element. Yeah, so I can add that. I can add one more. Yeah, so for now we are using the break element to add a line break because we have not learned about CSS. Yeah, so beside that, what else can we do? Maybe we can just add these alternating grids for now. But again, we can do more styling with the CSS. So for now, I go up to my table here, and then I can say table row and child. I can say, for example, even. Okay, so by doing that, you see at least we have some colors here. I can go with odd. Yeah, so this is our table. So when you see here, our title is actually vertical. So we achieve this using CSS, but this is a topic for the next videos. Yeah, so this is how you represent a table in HTML. And I think to make it even more readable, I can add some more semantic HTML in our table. And one of those elements is table heading. This just wraps across the content that is at the header of your table. So in this case, what we have at the header is the table row with the table heads. So I can cut this and put it inside the head, the table head. And then for completeness sake, I can have a table body. And then I just cut everything here, all the other rows. Just cut them and put them inside the body. So nothing changes as far as our table is concerned, but at least now our data is clearly marked. You can see this table row represent the header, and these other table rows represent the body or the data, table data. Yeah, so that's that. I hope you've learned something as far as coming up with the HTML table is concerned. Yeah, so now we can move to the next section. But before that, maybe I can add a HR rule here. I just say HR, and then I use the class we had. And then we have it at the bottom here. Then now I can come up with the other section. So the next section is the recipe section. So we can just type section, and then using our trick, hashtag recipe section. Then if you type enter, we have our ID there. So let's add a comment. So in the recipe section, we'll be focusing on iframes. So what are iframes? Iframes in HTML are elements that allow us to embed the content of other pages inside our document. For example, using an iframe, you can embed another website inside your page. So for example, let's just type iframe. Let's say we want to insert another website inside our website as an example. So I have an example here, and say HTTPS. If I save, you see I'm embedding an external website inside my website. So to make it more visible, maybe I can increase the size. I add some attribute. I give it a width of something like, let's say 600 pixels. And then height of 300 pixels. Yeah, so you see we are loading a website, an external page inside our document. So beside loading an external website, we can use iframes to load things like videos. We can use it to load things like Google Maps and so on. Yeah, so based on our website here, if I scroll down, we see we have some YouTube videos here. So we are going to use iframe to load these videos. So all we need to do is to open the video. And then once you open the video on YouTube, just click share and then click embed option. This will generate an iframe for you. And the beauty with this iframe is optimized for loading the video. Yeah, so you can just copy the iframe and then come to your section here and then just paste. So by just pasting, you see your video will be loaded on the page. So let's go through this iframe element. So you see we have some attributes here, width, height, and beside that we have the source that is able to fetch the video we are embedding on the page. And then also we have the title. Actually, this is a global attribute that is available on all HTML elements. Yeah, but here it's very important to include it because it tells the browser what this content is all about. And then also we have some attribute here that enable the video to load as expected by YouTube. You can still add more attributes. For example, you can add loading and then, for example, say lazy. this will determine the behavior of loading this iframe. So by saying that you want the iframe to be loaded lazily, you're saying that it can be loaded in the background without taxing your page. As in, if someone loads your page, all these other content can be loaded in the background, because some of these might be resource intensive. And also, most importantly, the lazy loading allows your website to load faster. So if you want to learn more about the iframe, you can just hover on this. It will show MDN documentation. You can open. And then once you're here, you see the example of the element. And then you see the attributes here. So we have so many attributes, but you can just focus on the ones that we've covered. Those are the necessary ones for now. Yeah, and again, you see there is a small warning here that talks about it can tax your browser while loading the content, because essentially you are loading content from another page. So it might make your page slow if you have not used it correctly. Yeah, so in our case, that's why we are using lazy loading. Okay, I hope that is enough explanation. So again, we can add the other video. The process is the same. Just open the video, and then once you're there, click share, and then choose embed option. This will generate an iframe for you. Copy the iframe, come to your page here, and then paste it here. And then if we visit our page, you see we have the two videos stuck one after another. So to separate them, we can use a BR element, that is a line break element. You can add another one. Yeah, so now we see we have quite some good gap there. And so we can add the lazy loading attribute. This is optional, by the way. So just say loading. Yeah, so all the attributes, you add them in the opening tag of your element. Okay, so beside loading videos and loading external websites, we can also use the iframe to load Google Maps. So for that, I think we can quickly transition to another section. So allow me to add another section here. We can call this physical location. Okay, so here, what I want to add the map. When you come to our website here and just scroll down, you see we have this physical address that shows the location on Google Maps. So how do you get this? We go to Google Maps. So just type Google Maps. And then from here, you can open Google Maps. Then you can choose whatever location you want. So in my case, I want to choose ICC Nairobi. So after you do that, you click share. And then you see the option for embed a map. So once you have that, you can actually copy this iframe and just paste it here. Okay, so it's the same thing. So you see we have an iframe, we have the source, and then we have the attributes, for example, the width, the height, and then we have some styles there, and also we have this attribute for lazy loading. This ensures that your website loads fast, even if there is a delay in loading the map. Yeah, so once we do that and come to our website, scroll down, we see we have our map here. Okay, so that was quite easy to do. So let's proceed. I want to add a divider here at the end of this section. So you can add HR and then utilize the class we created earlier. So this will add this nice divider here. Yeah, so our next section will be the contact section. So we can just type section here and then can say contact. Just type enter. So this section, you can say contact us. So in this section, we are going to focus on HTML form and the different inputs we can use for the HTML form. Okay, so for us to define a HTML form input, all we need to do is just type form element, and then it has an attribute. Actually, it has several attributes, but this one, they're not so important for now. These are very useful when you're submitting the form. Yeah, so first, I want us to create a very simple form. Yeah, so for us to create, to do that, now we have our form element, so we need form inputs. And so maybe I can just add a title here to make it clear that this is all about forms. I can say h2 HTML form. Okay, so inside here, I just want to create a div, a wrapper that will wrap different inputs that I'm going to add here. Yeah, so the first input I want to add, it's I can just type input, and then input is just a field that allows you to input some information. So when I save, you just see we have this empty input here. And actually, let me add the divider so that we have some space at the bottom. So I can say HR and then dot divider to utilize our class. Yeah, so now we have some space. Okay, so I was talking of the input. So this is an input that allows you to add something. Yeah, so we have different types of inputs, and we are going to cover all those inputs as we continue. So this is the most simplest way to represent an input. Yeah, so beside the type, you need a name to allow you to submit the form. So this, for example, you can say full name. And then beside that, we need an ID. You can give it any value, but you can say full name again. Okay, so beside that, an input can have a label. So we add a label here. Inside label, we have a for attribute that should link to the input that is associated with. So for example, this label is associated with the full name attribute. So make sure that this ID, the ID used on the input, is the same value you input here under the for attribute. And then here you can say the full name as the label. So when you save, at least you see our form has the full name here. Okay, so that is the first input. We can add as many inputs as we need. So before we do that, I wanted to style these things a little bit different. Yeah, so allow me to just add a few styles here. So I want to target the label and the input. I just want to give them a width of 100 and then some padding inside. Yeah, this will make them look a little bit better. Maybe I can give it something like 70%. Okay, so now at least you see we have our title here, our label at the top, and then we have the value at the bottom. Yeah. So this is the name input, and beside that, we can add a placeholder. Say, and before someone starts to type, at least they see an example of what they can input there. Yeah, so beside that, let's add another input. You can again add a wrapper, and then just add your label. And then beside the label, you add an input. So the next input will be an email input. So actually, when you just type input, here, and then :email, it will give you an email input. Yeah, so here you can just say the name of the field is email, and then the ID, you can call it email, and then here you can have it as email again. And then here you can say your email as the label. Okay, so you see our next field, that's our next field. And again, you can have a placeholder, maybe so the email field will help with some validation. If you start typing the wrong email, at least it will be able to detect and tell you put the right email. Another field I want us to add is a telephone. So again, we can add the wrapper, and then we add a label. So this label is for example, phone. Let's say phone. And then down here, we can have the input again. Input, and then you can put full colon and then say tel for telephone, or you can just input manually. So we have telephone as the type, and then name, you can decide to call it phone. And then here, we can also call it phone. Make sure the ID is the same as what you have here so that we can link them together. So here we can say phone number. Okay, so once you have that, you can also have maybe some placeholder here of what you expect to have. Sorry, it's placeholder. So these are some of the basic fields you can use. And beside that, you can actually group these fields using another element here. So this element is called field set. So this field set, we can actually group these elements. And then as you group, you see it draws some kind of a line. And also you can add another element here that's called the legend. Then maybe say, for example, personal info. Okay, so you see our form is kind of categorized that this is personal data. So next, we want to focus on checkbox inputs. Yeah, so in this case, I want to have checkbox for something like this. Choose cities you visited, and then someone is able to select from the checkbox. Yeah, so first things first, we need to create a wrapper of the input. So inside here we have a label, and then we have an input, the first input. So you can have input and then make sure the type is checkbox. And then also you can add the name here. So name, in this case, we can call it a city. And then you can have value here. Let's say the first city is, the first option is Nairobi. And then beside that, we also need an ID to link it with our label. So we can just call it Nairobi. So again, we need an ID to link it with our label. So we can call it Nairobi. And then make sure you have Nairobi here. And then as our label, we can have Nairobi. Okay, so now you see we have something weird here. So our checkbox is displaying weirdly because of the stylings we had on the input and label. Maybe I can show you. I can just control home to go to the top of the page. And then here you see we have these styles. And so these are the styles that are affecting because they are targeting all the elements. So for us, maybe we can add some classes to avoid that clashing. So let me just say Control and to go to the bottom of the page. And then here, instead of just targeting all the elements, maybe I can add some classes here. Maybe I can say class, I can just add full for the full width. I can add another one here. So maybe I can click Alt, I can hold Alt and then type here. I'll be able to type all at the same time. I can say class, and then full. Okay, so when I do that, I want to come to my styles here and then say I only want this to apply if it's nested within a class that is called full. And also we need to add it here, full. So this will fix our problem. But again, don't worry about what I did here. Don't worry. Yeah, we'll cover, you'll understand how to style your page very well. So for now, we have our first checkbox here. So with that, we can add some more fields here in our checkbox. It doesn't make sense to have only one item. So I realized I had a typo here. Let's change it to Nairobi. Okay, so what I want us to do is just duplicate. You can highlight that code and then Shift Alt downward arrow, and you do it again and again, and you have your copies duplicated. So what I want us to change, everything can stay the same. The checkbox, city is the name, and then for this second option, instead of Nairobi, you can highlight the first word Nairobi and then Control D, and then change it to London. Okay, so by doing that, we're able to edit everything in one go. So here maybe we just change the ID to lowercase l, and then make sure we do the same for the label L, and then everything can remain as is. And then this other option, again we can highlight the value and then Control D, D again, and then once we have that, we can change, for example, Vienna, and we save, and then we can change the ID to lowercase v, and then you do the same for the label. Okay, and then we can add one more city. Actually I want to add 2. Okay, so here we can do the same. The name can remain the same, the value. So we highlight the value and then Control D. Instead of Vienna, we can say Sydney. Okay, and then the ID you can change. Actually, you can leave it as is. Only that I prefer to have IDs in lowercase. Yeah, so we have that Sydney, and then maybe you can have others, so that this thing is inclusive and politically correct. So you can say others or other to cater for the people whose cities are not highlighted here. Yeah, so with this we have different options. So you can select, for example, Nairobi, London, or whatever. Yeah, so in short, this is how you represent different options. So you have different checkboxes. So you have the input and then the label. So the input has the type of checkbox, and then it has the value. The value for the name attribute should be the same. And then we have the value for the specific checkbox. And then we have the ID, which should reflect the label for the input. So that if someone, for example, they select the label, they automatically select the input. Okay, so to have it well organized, I want to again group these fields as one section. So for us to achieve that, we can use our field set. So this is very optional, by the way. You can just highlight our inputs here. Just highlight all of them and then paste them in this field set to form a collection. And then you see we don't have space here, so maybe we can add some line break, BR, another line break, and then now we'll have some space. And then instead of having our title here, we can maybe add it on the legend. So we can just change this to, Control Z to legend. And then thanks to our auto rename, extension. When we change the opening tag, the closing tag automatically changes. Yeah, so this is the extension we have here. I can show you. Auto rename extension. This extension. So this is a very useful extension. You can make sure that you have it installed in your case. Yeah, another one is auto close. Yeah, so this makes sure that when you type the opening tag, you'll automatically have the closing tag. Okay, so that is just by the way. So when we save, let's see how our page looks. Yeah, so you see we have this legend here, and that separation. Okay, so this is the checkbox. So next, what happens if you want to choose an option from a list of options? So in that case, we use a select input. So let's go for it. So below the field set, we want to add another element. So we can create our wrapper here, div. And then inside it, I want us to add a label. You can add a label here. And then here, I want us to have a country of birth. Yeah, so we can just say country of birth, just COB. And then here we can say select country of birth. Okay, so we have that title. And then inside here, we want to have a select element. Just type select element. And then this element should have a name. So maybe you can say country of birth. So let me just type. And then the ID should reflect what you have on the label. You can copy this and have it here. The ID. And then now inside the select element, we have options. We can have several options. So just type option. And then an option should have a value. So let's say the first country, let's say it's United States. So the value, we can say USA. And then the option, we can say United States. So let's add another option here. Just type option. Make sure it's a lowercase. Option. And we can duplicate it to make our life easier. So the second option, we can say Panama. Okay. So actually it's easier if I remove this and then duplicate this Panama. So the second option, we can just highlight this, the first, and then Control D, and then say Canada, followed by, here we can have Kenya, Control D, Kenya, and then we can have Egypt, Control D, and then we can have Rwanda, for example, Control D, Rwanda, and here we can duplicate this, Control D, just type once, and then we can have Germany, and then UK, Control D, United Kingdom. Okay, so here as the value, you can just say UK, and then beside that we can have France, and then we can have the last option here as others. Control D, other. Okay, so with this we have the label here, which is this, what you can see here, country of birth. And then we have our selection, or rather our select input, that is linked to the label via the ID. And then we have the name of our select input as country of birth. So now with this, you can come here and choose whatever option you want. So this is how you create the select input. Okay, so to make it better, we can wrap it with another field set. I can just type here field set. So I want to show you another trick. If you highlight this content and then click Alt and then upward arrow, you'll be able to move this text up and down, up. So if you click up, you move it up. If you click down, you move it down. So for this case, I want to type up so that our content is wrapped within the field set. So you can see here. So to add some space, again, we can add the line break, another line break. Now we have some space there. And then for our label, I think it's okay if we have our label like that. So here we have our different options. And again, there is something I want to show you when working with the select input. You can actually group your different inputs. For example, if I add some labels here, you can see this is North America. North America, the first 3 fields. And then again, control/, we have Africa. And then the next 3 fields here. The next 3 fields here, we have Europe. And then the last one is others. Okay, so we can categorize this information. So to group select inputs together, we use option group, written as opt group. And so you can just highlight this and then hold Alt and then upward arrow to put it inside here. And then you add an attribute that's called label. So here you can say North America. Okay, so if you click here, you see we have a title North America. So you can do the same for Africa. Just say opt group and then add a label here. Say Africa. And then you can, again, you can highlight all these options, do Control X to cut, and then Control V to paste. And save, it will format. You can add another option group, add a label, call it Europe. And then highlight all these options. You can either Control X to cut and Control V to paste, or hold Alt and then upward arrow, save. And then lastly, we have others. You can also have our final group here. Say opt group. And then here we can add others. Okay, you can save and label other. Okay, so now if you select here, you see we've been able to group our inputs, North America, Africa, and so on. Yeah, so this is how you create a list of options. So again, grouping your options is optional. You can actually remove this if you don't like your data grouped. You can remove the option groups. The form will work exactly the same way. Okay, so something else I want to show you is there is another alternative of writing a list using data list. Yeah, so let's do that right now. So allow me to collapse this and then create another field set here. Field set again is optional. Let me add legend. Okay, let me first begin. I can add my wrapper here as just a div. And then inside, that's where I want to have my input, that is select input, written in a different way. So here we'll start with the label. And then this label, I want us to call it city of origin. Okay, so here we can say city of origin, just to reduce the typing. And then here, first of all, you need an input to have a data list. So just input, you can have it as text, that's okay. But the most important thing here is to have an ID first to link it with the label. So here, to link it with the label, we use that ID. Okay, so this input is linked to the label. But beside that, now we want to add our data list here. So I can have a data list. And then this data list, we need to link it with our input. So for us to do that, first in our input, we need to reference the list. So we can do that using the list attribute. And then we say this list is linked to the other one. So here we can say, let's just say city of origin. I just want to link it with this field here. So here we need an ID that will link to this input. This input is the most important link, not the label, the input. Okay, so this input is linked to the data list. Okay, so beside that, now we need to have option here. So the option for the data list is different because it can be self-closing. We can have the value, instead of putting it as the content, we can remove this and then just add a city of origin. As the first example, we can add, for example, Tokyo, Japan as the first option. And then we can add other options here. So let me just duplicate this to make our life easy. So here we can have Dubai, and then we can have Madrid, sorry, and then we can have Toronto, we can have Sydney, and then we can have other. Okay, and then maybe I can add some line break here so that it's clearly visible. So here I can add some legend here, legend, and then say city of origin. I'm not sure if I need the legend because we already have the text here. So maybe I can just comment it out so that we don't repeat ourselves. We already have city of origin. Yeah, so I wanted to show you the difference between select and the data list. Data list allows you to choose, but beside that, you can actually type, for example, Toronto, and then you see the option is fetched. So actually that is the only difference, that here, instead of just selecting, you can actually type. You can type, for example, other, and then you see other option. Yeah, so before we finish on this section here, I want us to go back to select and just mention something here. If you want an option to be selected by default, for example, you see here, US, United States is selected by default, and the reason is it's the first option. But let's say you wanted Canada to be selected by default. You can add another attribute here, just say selected. So this is a Boolean attribute. Let me remove that. Yeah, so you see Canada is selected by default before a user select any other option. Okay, so beside that, I want us to focus on other input types. So here I want to add another input. So we can add our wrapper, and then we add a label. So this label, I want it to be date of birth. So here we can say date of birth. And then we have our input. So input, in this case, we want to have date as the input. So the name is date of birth. And the ID, we can just say date of birth. Okay, so now actually let's add some space above. So you can add some line break, another line break. Then with that, at least we have some space. So if you click here, you are able to choose a date. Yeah, so let's say we can have a minimum date so that people don't go below that. So we can just say minimum. You can start with the year. So let's say 1900. And then you have the month 01, 01. Okay, so whatever date you choose, you can't go below that. And also we can have maximum. Let's have maximum. Let's say you can't go beyond 2026. So you can say 2026. Then say 01, 01. Okay, so when I click, I can choose the date that is beyond 2026. If I click here, yeah, I can't go beyond 2026. All these are grayed out. Okay, so that is an example. And also you've learned some attributes you can add here to control the kind of input that the user will input. Yeah, so beside that, we also have a number input. So to show you that, we create another wrapper, and then we have a label. So this label, we can call it year of birth. So here, sorry, year of birth. Okay, and then we have input, full colon number, and then type. So here we have year of birth, and then also year of birth as the ID. That we link it to the label. And then we can also add some break here. Okay, so here you can also have a minimum number that a user can input. So maybe you can say minimum is 1900. Okay, and then maximum, you can say maximum is 2006. You can say maximum, say, so now whatever number I choose, I can't go below 1900 and I can't go above 2006. Yeah, so another value you can add here, you can even add time of birth because that is something that can be recorded. So I'm just duplicating the last field. Sorry, so it's just say time of birth. And then the ID is time of birth. And then here we don't need minimum and maximum, and remove these fields. And then here instead of a number, it's time. So the type of this input is time. Okay. So also make sure the name is correct, time of birth. And then now you can even select the time of birth. It's in 24-hour clock. And so you can select the exact time you're born. Okay, so I can add some line breaks here just to add some separation. Okay, and then after time of birth, finally I want us to add another field here. So let me add the wrapper, and then we add a label. So this label is for color. You can actually choose a color from an input. So let me show you. So that is the name of the label, and then input. I can just type input. So type is color, and then of course you need the name. And the name is color, and then you need the ID to link it to with the label. So here we can have color. Okay, so let's add some line breaks here. You can just copy this and paste it here. So now someone can actually choose a color. It can either be RGBA or hues, saturation, light, value, or even hexadecimal color. So we'll actually talk about colors in the CSS course. Yeah, so you can watch out for this. Yeah, so beside this, inside the form still, you can have a button. So let's call it submit. Okay, so this button will allow you to submit the form. And so you can copy this. Yeah, so we have the submit button. So it's recommended to say that this is a type of submit, so that in case you have a number of buttons within the form, the browser will know that this button is responsible for submitting the form. Yeah, so you can either have a button or you can have it as an input. You have input, and then you say type is submit. And then value, you can say submit. Yeah, so this is another alternative where you use an input as a button. But for me, I prefer this because you can style it even better. Yeah, so I believe we've covered everything that's concerned with the forms. Yeah, so this is how you come up with different types of forms in HTML. So if you want to submit a form, of course you need some attributes. Attributes like, for example, action. So this tells the browser where it should send the details, the content of the form. Yeah, so for now, we are not focusing on this because this involves also backend development. Yeah, but in our course, you will learn this as we go along. Yeah, so basically, these are the form inputs. And beside this, I want us to cover one more element, that is the footer element. So here, after the main section, because this is outside main, we can have footer. So footer is another semantic HTML. And then inside footer, maybe we can add the divider we had. So let's add HR, and then we add the class, the divider. And then now we have our divider down here. So in HTML, we have what is called HTML entities. These are symbols that are used to represent HTML special characters. For example, if I wanted to have a less than symbol, you see this might be confused to mean maybe I'm opening a tag or something. So to avoid that confusion, we use entities. So for us to represent a HTML entity, we start with and symbol. And then for this case, I want less than symbol, or rather less than entity. So if I type that, you see already we have it here. So I can duplicate this, copy, and then paste again, and then paste again. So you see, we have these less than symbols. And then let's say I wanted to add the text of my company here. I can say Delicious Bites. And then instead of writing at, because at again is a special symbol, I can say and then I say copy. And then if I save, you see we have a copy symbol. So you can say copy at 26. If I save, you can see that. And then maybe you say all rights reserved. Okay, and then maybe you can also have the greater than symbol here. You can just say enter greater than. See, so I'm just doing this so that I show you that you can actually have this. So there are so many special entities that we can use. So what you need to do is just Google HTML special entities and you'll get a list of all the special entities. Yeah, so this is our footer. It looks very, very simple. But what I really wanted to demonstrate is the use of semantic HTML. So actually we are done with this video. So in the next video, we are going to learn about CSS, and then we'll be able to build this amazing website. So if you are excited about that, we meet in the next video and we'll be able to build this beautiful website and style it using CSS. Thank you so much.